Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Big Sam's Long Balls podcast with me, Dan. Now, today we are going to be talking about my childhood hero growing up as a Liverpool fan. We're going to be talking about Steven Gerrard and is his time up at the mighty Aston Villa? It's a bit of it's a very, very difficult time for Aston Villa fans right now, and obviously a very difficult time for Steven Gerrard himself. Out of the last 15 Premier League games, Aston Villa have only won three of those games. It's difficult times for Steven Gerrard. Could he very well be on his way out of Villa Park? I think the majority of Aston Villa fans want that to happen. They're very, very desperate to happen. It's sad to see, obviously, as my childhood hero growing up. I do hope that Steven Gerrard can put it around. I personally feel that maybe the Aston Villa board will probably stick with him for a little while. I know there were some ambitions, maybe some outside sort of voices sort of saying, can Villa get European football this season? Can they finish in the top six? I listened to Graham Souness on Talksport earlier. I don't know what he's talking about in regards to Aston Villa, talking about how Steven Gerrard spent 400 million. I mean, he hasn't. Sort of maybe under the new owners, Aston Villa have spent that much money, but Steven Gerrard has certainly spent nowhere near that amount. He spent roughly about 50 odd million. So it was good. It was quite funny just to watch Simon Jordan put Graham Souness in his place. But regardless of things like that, difficult times lay ahead for Aston Villa at this moment in time. Obviously, being such a Liverpool legend, Steven Gerrard has been heavily linked with a job at my team after Jurgen Klopp leaves. I've always been a big believer to not allow that to happen, as we've seen things like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Frank Lampard and things like that happening. Legends at the club. It always ends in one way, usually with that manager getting sacked and us all in tears. But regardless of that, I've followed Steven Gerrard's managerial career really since he's gone into management. He did a very, 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 very good job at Scotland with Rangers, bringing them their first league title in over a decade. He also did really well with them in European football. They've obviously gone up another level, getting to the Europa League final, getting into the Champions League since he's been gone. But also, you have to give Steven Gerrard huge amounts of credit at Rangers because he really started that. And when he came in at Aston Villa, an Aston Villa side that was down on their luck, looked like they wanted to get rid of Dean Smith. Um, it looked like the right appointment at the time. And when he came in, I thought Aston Villa did really, really well. I remember them coming to Anfield pretty early on in Gerrard's tenure. It was one of the toughest games that we had of the season. A really scrappy victory over them. I don't think we deserved the 3 points that day. So watching watching Aston Villa's performances under Steven Gerrard early on was encouraging. They looked solid, they looked aggressive, what you would expect from a Steven Gerrard team, and then they had that draw, that sort of power now in the transfer market, that excitement to bring in certain players such as a Felipe Coutinho, who was really, really good when he first came in on loan. But obviously, Aston Villa have gone one step above. They've spent over 20 million on him, and it's just not working out at this moment in time. Look, we are only 4 games into the season. They are only a couple of points behind us at this moment in time. So perhaps it is a bit too soon to be talking about, you know, uh, flops like Coutinho and sacking Steven Gerrard. But there's no doubt about it. Aston Villa are in an absolute rut. And we have sort of seen some facts here. I think out of their last, what was it, I said 12 or 15 games, 3 victories. That's relegation form, no matter how much you want to dress it up. And I personally don't think that Aston Villa will get relegated this season. The form they are in, you have to say, is relegation form. So it is a massive worry. And you perfectly understand why these Aston Villa fans want to get rid of Steven Gerrard. This team is far too good. It's far too good to be looking over their shoulder and worrying about relegation. I think that should be a thing of the past for Aston Villa. They should be looking forward and trying to getting into those European places. I had really hoped that Steven Gerrard would be that guy. I think once Gerrard took over Villa, Aston Villa became sort of every Liverpool fan's second favourite team. And I'd love to see Aston Villa, and two teams I'd love to see in European football. Actually, just out coincidence would be Aston Villa and Crystal Palace. To see both of those stadiums under the lights on a European night would just be fantastic. But unfortunately, Aston Villa do look a million miles away from that. We will talk about tactics in this podcast. We'll talk about some of the negativity that Aston Villa seem to be playing at this moment in time. And it's really, really strange because Villa do have some exciting players. They've got some flair, they've got some attacking talent, which he just doesn't seem to be going for. And I don't really understand why. And it's really tough watching him. And it must be incredibly tough for the Villa fans to be watching him as well at this moment in time. But I watched him yesterday after the game being interviewed, I think sort of like for the Aston Villa sort of channel or whatever it was, and he was just this. He was just looking at the floor. He couldn't look at the person interviewing him. Uh, such a such a negative vibe we're getting from him, and I'm a big believer in sort of body language, and I like to sort of. I think someone's body language gives you a real impression of the type of personality that they are. When I certainly think of Steven Gerrard, I think of someone who's very confident, shoulders out, puffs that chest out, I am sort of the dog's bollocks almost, and maybe rubs people up the wrong way, but a very confident man, fully believes in himself and gets the job done. We're not seeing that at the moment. We're seeing a man who looks a shell of himself. He's really lacking confidence. And this is going to be the biggest managerial test of Steven Gerrard's career to date, obviously, as a manager. So hopefully, I think he can get through it. I think there is big pressure on him. Personally, looking on it on the outside, I know Villa would have ambitions of trying to target those European places. And obviously, the feeling is get him out now, get someone else in, and sort of move forward with that. However, I don't feel that Aston Villa, well, I don't feel that sacking Steven Gerrard right now would be the correct thing to do, because if you sack someone, what was it, 3 days before the transfer window closes, you're not going to get anyone in that time. They're not going to be able to come in and invest and bring in any players that they want. So you're going to have at least up until January with a new manager coming in, potentially working with players that he doesn't want to. What I would personally do, because again, I don't believe that Villa are in any trouble really of relegation. I think they are too good for that, and I think you can wait and maybe make that decision. The ownership can make that decision around about November, December time. If he's still the man, obviously stick with him. If he's not, then you sort of look elsewhere. You get rid of Gerrard, and then you can bring someone else in for that January transfer window, where you can then invest again and make sure that you're not looking over your shoulder at relegation. Because I don't think now would be the time to sack a manager 4 games into the season. It wouldn't make too much sense to me. However, I do think that Gerrard could be on some borrowed time right now. Like I said, tactically, he's incredibly negative. He's got some exciting players on that bench in the squad that he just simply isn't using, whether he doesn't like them or whether he doesn't trust them. It can't be the case that he doesn't rate them, because the players that he's playing in front of them just are not doing that job. And one thing that I picked up on when he was being interviewed yesterday is he said about a lack of creativity that Aston Villa had on that pitch. But you had players like Buendia and Bailey on the bench, and you just think, you do have options to bring on and you're not doing it. So it makes me feel that maybe something's happening behind the scenes. We obviously all know about the Tyrone Mings situation. He stripped the captaincy off him and he gave it to John McGinn. Now you can look at that in two separate ways. You could look at that and go, right, that's strong management. Maybe Tyrone Mings has let the club down. Maybe he's not what Aston Villa really need as a captain or as a leader of that football club. John McGinn is. He might lead the team better on the pitch. He might be better behaved on the training field and behind the scenes and whatnot. You could look at that and go, that's a strong leadership. Well done to Steven Gerrard. However, if he just left it there, I think you could say that. But there's been a few additional things. Obviously, we know, well, first of all, Tyrone Mings came out, didn't he? And he did that tweet, and he was very happy for John McGinn. He said, he will continue to give everything for Aston Villa, that he absolutely loves the club. A very professional looking statement. So you weren't expecting any more drama, really. But then drama's come out that the two of them have had a bit of a falling out. Then obviously Steven Gerrard with the comments that, if he can look me in the eye, we'll have a chat. Now, that's a really unprofessional comment. Whatever, people may feel about Tyrone Mings, I don't obviously know Tyrone Mings at all. I'm not an Aston Villa fan, so I don't know the ins and outs of what Tyrone Mings is like on a regular occurrence. But that is quite an unprofessional comment. You wouldn't expect a manager to make that. And I'm not particularly, myself, I'm not the most confrontational human being in the world. But if someone had a problem with me and said, if you can look me in the eye, we'll have a chat, that would piss me off. And especially if it was my boss, I wouldn't want to work for them anymore. I wouldn't want to go above and beyond for that person. So, and we know that footballers are very, very tight. They talk. So I would imagine that this purely isn't just a problem between Tyrone Mings and Steven Gerrard anymore. I'd imagine that, Tyrone Mings has got very good friends in that dressing room, people that really enjoyed playing under him as captain, people who potentially looked up to him, people who are just very close to him. And suddenly your problem with one becomes two, and then it becomes 4 and 6, and so on and so on and so on. And then what you're looking at right now, to me, from the outside, is players who don't want to play for him. And that's the instant problem. Steven Gerrard talking about a lack of creativity, a lack of options, all of this. He's got options in that squad. He's got options in the bench. What I'm looking at right now is an Aston Villa team or a group of players that don't like him and don't want to play under him. And maybe you can criticize those players and say that's not right. Of course it isn't. Unfortunately, we know that professional footballers do this. And although Steven Gerrard has never managed Liverpool Football Club, he was captain for an awful long time. And I'd seen the way that he'd behaved on that pitch. I'd seen, or I'd heard rather, things that he'd been like in training. And although I love Gerrard, of course I do, he's my damn hero growing up. I know, where I get the feeling that he can be very confrontational. He can be very uncomfortable to work with, quite aggressive. And that's one thing to be as a captain, because you know that you've got the manager, you've got the coaches that can sort that out. But suddenly, if you're that man in charge, it's like in my line of work, I do teaching, and the best advice I ever got when I do my teacher training was three simple words: know your students. And I like to think that whenever I've had my best lessons, it's because I've gotten to know them very well and I know what works and what doesn't work. And I think that's really the case at it can be in any industry, if you're in management or if you're in charge of people, and professional football as well, where you are in charge of a group of people, more often than not, very, very young people, professional footballers as well, considering that once you're past 30, people telling you to retire. So you're going to deal with a lot of young men in the world of football at this moment in time. So that can be transferred to know your players. And obviously, I don't know what Tyrone Mings is like and all of this, but I'm getting the feeling that saying to him in public, so yeah, you haven't even said to him sort of man to man, you've said in public, basically, if you've got the balls to look me in the eye, we'll have a chat and then we can get you back in this team. That's not the way to go about, that's really poor man management. And it's kind of understandable that maybe Tyrone Mings and some of these Aston Villas don't want to work under him. It's not good for the fans because they're letting the club down. But I do worry about Steven Gerrard because, taking his tactics away from everything, you look at man management is arguably some of the most important part of being a manager. And he looks to me that he doesn't really have it. So I just got distracted by some of this trending stuff. Sanderberg is trending. It better not be because Liverpool are signing him. Everyone's invited founder Somasara. Porn has framed our lives and normalized sexual abuse. Okay. Right. Well, we're gonna return to the football. Anyway, some more stats about Aston Villa under Steven Gerrard right now. Aston Villa have now taken just 12 points from their last possible 45. Simply isn't good enough. Yeah, is not good enough. That is relegation form. And I believe I read a stat that if Steven Gerrard loses his next two games, he becomes statistically the worst manager in the history of Aston Villa Football Club. Their next two games, Arsenal and Manchester City. So a long couple of weeks, or a long week at least, for Steven Gerrard. It does not look good. His managerial record at this current moment in time is worse than Gary Neville, and he gets obviously mocked relentlessly at what he did over at Spain. So if your record is already worse than that, and you could then potentially become the worst manager in the history of Aston Villa, I do worry about Steven Gerrard and where he can come back from here. Anyway, I don't want to make this video too long, but I wanted to look at the Villa team from yesterday. So you got Martinez, Cash, Chambers, Konsa, Digne, Kamara, Luis, McGinn, Coutinho, Watkins, Ings. Now, I didn't really know where Ings was, so I read this little story on the Daily Mirror. Steven Gerrard saying that Tyrone Mings is out because he was ill. I really hope that's the case. I hope it's not that, they're not playing because these two have a problem with each other. I think Steven Gerrard needs to realize that he's in a tricky situation. Whatever people's feelings might be about Tyrone Mings, I personally don't rate him as this amazing centre back. I think he's a good player, has lapses in concentration, but he's never gone to the other level that maybe he could have potentially done. But obviously Villa went out. They invested in another centre back. He's now out injured. It looks like he could be out injured for a very long time. So there's no point cutting your nose off to spite your face, Stevie. You're going to have to make amends with Tyrone Mings. You're going to have to make him feel good. You're going to have to make him feel that he is, 7 feet tall again. Make him feel like he is your number one centre back. Bring him back into this team because Martinez, Cash, Chambers, Konsa, Digne, it's not the greatest defensive line in world football. Kamara, Louise, McGinn, three very similar sort of midfielders to me, all kind of defensive. Maybe McGinn, out of all of them, the most could be potentially the one that gets forward, and he's got a good shot on him. He can score some goals, but again, there's no real creativity there. Watkins, Ings, Coutinho. Coutinho's having a bit of a nightmare. Watkins and Ings, I don't really, can those two play well together? I always feel they both want to play sort of as a number nine, really. And I think when you play them both in this sort of system, one's going to have to go out wide. I do feel that maybe Stevie G could mix it up over, certainly up against Arsenal. Obviously, Arsenal are in a brilliant reign of form at the moment, but maybe go man for man against Arsenal, go 41 himself. Obviously, the back five probably stays the same. If Mings is available, bring him back in. I think definitely you've got to do that, make amends, shake hands, maybe sort of some of the morale in the club might be lifted to see Mings back in the team. I would then, go 43-1 and maybe go McGinn and bring in the youngster Jacob Ramsey. Obviously signed a long-term deal earlier on this summer. He's a top player. Get him in there. He's got a bit of creativity. He can get forward. He can link up with those attackers. He can drive forward. So McGinn and Ramsey, I think, would be a decent midfield duo. I'd take out Coutinho from the number 10 role, or he's not playing the number 10 role at the moment in time, but I would bring in Buendia from the bench, put him as the number 10. I think you bring in Leon Bailey, put him on that right-hand side. And then maybe to give Coutinho maybe a little longer run in the team, maybe you could put Coutinho out wide on the left-hand side. And I would go with Watkins up top, rather than Ings, and get sort of Watkins playing on that last shoulder. And I just suddenly think you've got a little bit more about you then. You've got Leon Bailey on that right-hand side. He's going to run at defenders, cut inside. I think Coutinho can do a good job on that left-hand side and get that link-up play with Buendia. Get as many creative players on that pitch as possible. I think that's a front four that can score goals. The Aston Villa's defence is not the best. We all know that. We knew that at the beginning of the summer rather, and we certainly know it now. There probably isn't enough time to go out and invest heavily into Aston Villa's defence. So play into your strengths. Leon Bailey is a top attacking player. Coutinho's got it. We've seen it in the past. He just needs to, he needs to get it back. And I maybe change up the formation, give him a few more games. If he's still not doing it, drag him off. But bring in Buendia. Maybe Buendia and Coutinho can link up, can mix, swap around. Both can play the 10, both can drift out wide. And I think one of Watkins or Ings, I'd go with Watkins at this current moment in time, with McGinn and Ramsey as a midfield duo. You might disagree with that heavily. That's absolutely fine. If you do, that's just my opinion as a a neutral fan looking at Aston Villa at this moment in time. But anyway, guys, that's my views on Steven Gerrard and Aston Villa right now. I do like Aston Villa. Big fan of Steven Gerrard, obviously, my childhood hero growing up. So I do want this to work massively. But let me know in the comments, guys, are you really desperate to see Steven Gerrard sacked? If you are, tell me who you would want to replace him. And if you're happy, or if you're willing rather to see Gerrard stay, what would you want to see change over these next few weeks? Would you want to see a formation change? Let me know your team sheet that you would want Aston Villa to play up against Arsenal in the next few days, because it is going to be a very, very long week for Aston Villa, and I really hope they can get some more points on the board, and it'd be lovely if they could get a victory against Arsenal and Man City. So anyway, guys, that was this video on Steven Gerrard. Let me know in the comments down below your feelings on Aston Villa and Stevie G at this moment in time. If you enjoyed this video, leave us a like. That would be lovely. And definitely subscribe for some more long balls footy chat. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, give us a like, and I'll see you very soon. And thank you so much for watching.